Hey everybody, back with a interesting announcement. Today I'm launching RigNewton.com, which is sort of an open source, now it's open source, software project that can drive haptics via USB. It can drive a butt kicker via audio output. So think kind of free version of SimVibe, I guess. Now let me clarify something. I bought SimVibe. I think it's awesome. It's, you know, almost 90 bucks, but right now it's the best thing out there. This is sort of doing some of what SimVibe does, but it's also doing things that it can't. So I can pull the G-forces out of a simulator, I can push them into this thing, and I can feel going into a bank turn, I can feel acceleration and deceleration. So there's a lot of things beyond just this is not a SimVibe clone, just to be clear. It is, however, free and open source, and part of what I'm doing today is trying to recruit developers to help out. So if you look at the Reddit, the subreddit for RigNewton, which you can find through the RigNewton.com website, you can see kind of job openings, I guess. They don't pay, keep that in mind, but if you have some free time, you know, C++ could be good for your resume or just kind of fun. So what is it? Like I said, you can take the RPM out of a simulator. Right now it works with Assetto Corsa and iRacing. So I'm doing interesting things there, pulling out G-forces, pulling out RPMs, pulling out wheel load, all this kind of stuff that you can pull out of a sim, pushing it to the haptics. And recently, with some help from a contributor, we're kind of closing in on getting, being able to map the RPM from, you know, the engine to a butt kicker, so you can kind of feel what the engine's doing, a la SimVibe. Some of the things you could also do, as I mentioned, this is not a SimVibe clone. This is kind of a generic router of data and electronics. Let me give you an example. You could take the RPM out of a simulator, and because I have the ability to control electronics with this FTDI cable and a bunch of software, you could route the RPM to shift light indicator. So I've been playing around with these little blink M lights that are I2C, I2C compatible, so I can just light them up. So you could build all kinds of weird, interesting things. There are a lot of DIY kind of Arduino projects. This kind of bypasses a lot of that. You don't need a Raspberry Pi anymore. You can just control it straight from the PC through USB. So shift lights is one possible application. Another one is you can take the speed out of the simulator and you can control fans with it. So, you know, some people have done this. They've kind of hard-coded it in. But kind of an open source, easy way to say, oh, hey, I can buy this cheap fan controller from Adafruit, and oh, this is some free software, RigNewton, and plug it in, and without a ton of hassle, you've got some pretty interesting stuff that is relegated to the hackers right now. What else? Another thing is that this is kind of the inputs here. You've got RigNewton in the middle, translating data from the simulators or flight simulators, or maybe even, you know, eValkyrie. If you could get the G-forces out of that, you could map it to the haptics. But you've got your input side. RigNewton pulls it out, manipulates it, and then drives it to whatever output you have, be that butt kicker, haptics, maybe even, you know, motion rig, if you could, you know, if it's I2C compatible, or any of the other electronics bus formats that are just built into this device, as well as the software. The interesting thing here is, again, I keep saying this is not a clone of SimVibe. One thing you could do is build on the input side. You could pull the RPMs out of your real car through ODB. So there are a lot of interesting applications there. Let me give you an example. You could take potentially a butt kicker and slap it on your actual, you know, car seat. Another one would be, this is one I'd actually like to do, take the RPMs out and map it into the speakers so that you can, you know, simulate other cars. What would it be like to hear what a Ferrari, you know, GTO 250 sounds like? Well, bring a laptop in your car, and maybe you can find out. So all these things that, you know, I've just kind of thought of off the top of my head, but because it's open source, there's so much more that the community can think up and try and build that I am never even going to conceive of. So at a high level, that's it. It's open source. It's going to rely on volunteers to take it to the next level. There's a GitHub page. There is a subreddit for discussions. There's RigNewton.com, which has some links to, like, if you wanted to buy this cable and this circuit board from Texas Instruments to play with the haptics, there's some information there to do that. To be clear, these haptics evaluation kits are not the kind of thing you can go to buy at you know, Fry's. There's a lot of restrictions on what you can do with these. So eventually the idea would be, maybe this is a Kickstarter, design the PCB open source, so kind of the open source hardware movement, but kind of create something like this that you could download the schematics, or somebody could probably even spin up a business and create the PCBs and sell them. You may have seen the open source open sim wheel kind of movement right now. There's the Ioni Pro and other circuit boards. So this isn't, you know, breaking any new ground really, but the idea is out there and it kind of works. So this would be the same kind of vision. I really do think, especially with VR, haptics is going to be a big part of the future, and this is laying some of the foundation for that. The fact that it's open source is probably not a bad thing. I think that's a pretty good high-level overview of what RigNewton is. I think the first version at launch would be, you know, you can look on GitHub right now and see a bunch of code. It's primarily focused on the haptics side. In the short run, what I'd like to do is get the audio side working. Version 1, minimum viable product. I'm a product manager by day, so I think kind of in those terms of what is the first launch push, what should it do? And in my mind, that's take the RPM out of a few simulators and output it to butt kickers or other tactile transducers. Clark Synthesis has some good ones. So anyway, that's in my mind, and when that would launch would depend on who volunteers. Got a couple people now. I'm pretty busy with a day job and 2 kids, one 3 months old, so I'm probably not going to be doing the heavy lifting on the C++ side, but I think we need to architect it. You know, we're not going to build a one-off for RPM to butt kicker. It's going to need to be architected, extensible. It's going to need to be flexible. And then the first application, once that framework has been laid, will be pull the RPM out, push it to butt kicker or any other transducer. So I think there's a big market of people out there that have bought these that probably haven't ponied up for the Sim Commander, SimVibe software. They would probably be pretty happy to get something like that. So that would be phase 1. The timing, I think, after I launch this will, again, be dependent on who volunteers. So C++, if you know software architecture, could be good for your resume, good for the community at the very least. So go to the subreddit. I've created some threads for where the help is needed. Look at the code on the GitHub page, and I think the next video I will gather all the feedback from these various sources, YouTube comments, Reddit, etc., and address any questions that I haven't answered here today. My time's a little limited at this point, so I'll probably have to do these in batches, but I'll address any questions and give answers probably in the next video or on the various discussion boards. So anyway, let me know what you think. Help if you can. It's an interesting time to be alive, and I think this could have legs if we stay focused and don't try to build something that's more than it needs to be. Anyway, thanks again. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you online. Thanks.